So the astrology of the week of 31 January 2022 through 6 February 2022, it's a powerful and profound week. This is some of the best astrology that we've had in a long while, and it's a week that will support, I think, digging deep into this new year and this new world and initiating projects, kind of getting into things in a deep and profound way, including maybe the spiritual side of reality is underpinned greatly here this week. We get a new moon in Aquarius and a waxing young moon here in Pisces with ruler Jupiter. So let's get into the charts, let's get into the week. My name is Astrologer S.J. Anderson. My name is S.J. Anderson and I'm an astrologer. Welcome to my channel. Every week I do a dive into the weekly astrology, and it's always so exciting to check out the symbols, dive into what's happening. This is one of those weeks that they're always interesting, they're always unique in their own way, but this is one where I'm very, very much excited because this week includes a whole waxing lunar cycle that is greatly supported. I'll dive all into that, but if we just try to contextualize this week's of astrology against what we've gone through, 2020, epic pile-up in Capricorn, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the South Node, the eclipses on the Cancer-Capricorn axis, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, the conjunction of, and then that initiates a great upheaval in Saturn's sign of Capricorn. Saturn then moves into Aquarius in 2022, back into Capricorn. Jupiter and Saturn meet on the winter solstice 2020, right there on the winter solstice. So sorry, I think earlier I said Jupiter and Saturn. I'm talking about 2020 now. And so you have Saturn into Aquarius, back into Capricorn, and then Jupiter and Saturn meet on that winter solstice, still in Saturn-ruled signs, Capricorn, Aquarius. And so all of the great activity of these shifts have been happening in these Saturn-ruled signs with Jupiter and Saturn there. And then we get 2021, Jupiter peaks into Pisces, and then now 2020, and then at the end of the year in 2021, Jupiter leaves Aquarius for good and enters Pisces now for good. And so we're over the Jupiter-Saturn co-present cycle, and we can begin to now settle in to the beginnings of movement beyond that. And the nodes since June 2020 and then now until January 2022, they were in Sagittarius. And with Ketu now out of Sagittarius, this really is the first time that we've had Jupiter strong in the sky with dignity, at the same time that Sagittarius has not been harmed there by, you know, the South Node, it's its own style of maybe problematizing. It's not necessarily outright harm, we might say. It's more complicated than that, but it's nice to have the South Node out. And so this is really the first time we're having these kind of pure pockets of Jupiter. It's the first waxing phase of the moon without the South Node in Sagittarius since Jupiter has been into Pisces. And so this is really the time for growth and expansion. All of those longer cycles kind of point to the now, point to this week as this kind of burst of energy. And the mutable signs have been freed, like I've been talking about so much. And so that's my main theme of this little introductory piece, is that we've now moved into some really cool astrology to start like actively working with 2022, happening this week. And there is some other pockets later all throughout the next few months while Jupiter is still in Pisces, but this just may be the best moon. I haven't examined them all in detail, but I've got a feeling this may be actually the very best moon of all of the Jupiter and Pisces time that we're gonna have. So that is why it is so powerful. And what is Jupiter? You know, abundance, love, truth, healing, optimism, hope, dreams, you know, big things. And so it's kind of cool to, on the heels of a week that you'll see this week, we have 6 of the 7 traditional planets in Saturn-ruled signs. Immediately after that, we get maybe the best Jupiter-ruled moon of the whole cycle. And so it's like these extremes: Saturn, the harshness, the kind of difficulty and separation that Saturn can bring, propelling us right into this kind of burst forward. And so that's the summary. That's the basic introduction. Really, that's the whole week. I mean, we could just stop the video here. We won't do that because we're going to look at charts and look at a lot of other things. And I don't really have much else to bring. So I think we should just shift and dive in. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot in the charts this week. So let's just go into the transits of the planets and the sign changes and the direct stations. So this week, it's the epic new moon in Aquarius, comes in on Tuesday, 6:40 a.m. in Central Europe. So early Tuesday morning, we get this really intense Saturn new moon. Saturn seeds the new moon because it's only 3 degrees away from that new moon, and the new moon is in Aquarius, the Saturn ruled sign. So this is kind of a new seeding of the power of Saturn. And it's why I was so focused on, in that introduction, thinking about Saturn cycles and with Jupiter and just how Saturnine everything's been. This new moon is almost a return and another kind of climactic moment of this whole 6 year, 5.5 year period, 5-6 year period of Saturn in Capricorn, Aquarius, where we are now. And so that's kind of cool about it because it's later in the process. Saturn has already moved through Capricorn. We had the upheavals of 2020, and now we're in this other phase where Saturn is kind of inching towards the end of this time where it's powerful. And so this is a great moon to have here. I have here Saturn as the kingmaker and the supporter of the rise to greatness. That's really energy that defines this week with a new moon co-present with a powerful Saturn. And so the context of 2018, 2019, 2020, the upheavals, and then now 2021, now into 2022, where really I think we can shift and pivot. And I've been talking about this in the last few videos about how we can use Saturn, less of the destructive, restrictive side, and more of the power that it can provide us if you're like staying committed to a project or thinking about deep and kind of profound long-term changes that have been initiated over the past few years, but that now you're maybe more actively working with. That's what this new moon this week can give you. So I have here the syzygy is strongly of this Saturn nature. Friday then is a huge day. That's the theme of this week. It's the Tuesday early morning new moon in Aquarius, the great Saturn new moon, and then it shifts to this Friday moment. And it's a powerful day, so I'll just go through these three in order. Mercury stations direct in Capricorn on Friday at 5:12 a.m. Central European time. Mars will perfect a sextile. Mars from Capricorn to Jupiter in Pisces, 2:37 p.m. Central European time. And then we end that day with the Saturn cazimi, the Saturn getting purified by the sun in the 16th degree of Aquarius or 15 degrees Aquarius. Right in the middle there, you get this powerful purification of Saturn. And so all of those three aspects on Friday are supportive, aspects of great auspiciousness in each in their own way. Mercury stationing direct removes the blocks of the Mercury retrograde. Now we're moving forward again with Mercury. So there's a kind of relief. You will have made it by the time we get to Friday through Mercury retrograde. And sure, it's going to work through its shadow, but it's the kind of, I love the post-retrograde shadow because you now have the power to kind of fix or even those problems may have already been fixed, but we can move ahead now with our mercurial themes. We can begin to work with Mercury. I like this Mercury quite a bit in Capricorn in this stellium with Venus and Mars. And so Mercury gets to blend with an exalted Mars in Capricorn. Mercury gets to blend with a newly direct Venus in Capricorn. And so there's a lot of power there where you can have the thought and the conversation and the communication of Mercury combining with the force of Mars's desire to get moving, and then the Venusian side that's soft and relational oriented. Like when those three things combine, some real powerful stuff can go down. And that's all happening this week. And the ruler of the stellium in Capricorn, Saturn, then is purified in the heart of the sun on Friday. And so there's just this very dynamic shift of power that emerges here on Friday. And yeah, the Jupiter sextile, it's exact with Mars on Friday, but it's also by sign to the whole of the Capricorn stellium. And so this is just, again, anytime you think about Saturn and Mars, you think about movements of great power, strength. Sometimes in life when we have to act, we have to dig deep and do things that are hard and difficult, but they require fortitude and courage and Metal is a word I've been thinking a lot about, digging deep and getting into our metal and our moxie, and just doing the thing we're here to do in life. Sometimes those are the most difficult. They feel difficult in the moment because they require us to step into our power, and we're often not used to acting from a place of pure power because we are afraid, or maybe we're just taught that that's not okay. I feel like life in one sense is coming into our power. That's the beauty of the Saturn return, is you get the first phase of all of your placements. This has come up a few times in readings recently. It's the early phase of our placements, pre-Saturn return, where we're unconscious often. We don't even know our astrology, a lot of us. And we're unconsciously acting out the conditioning of the family and the culture and all of that stuff, or the placements themselves, just what we come out of. And that initial dance with it is like, oh wow, this is tough, this is hard. Sometimes we're dealing with the more so-called negative or problematic symbol manifestations of the sides of those symbols. But once we hit Saturn return, and then another Saturn cycle, and the second Saturn return, ideally we're working now. And we're now making friends with our symbols and then able to deploy them in a very positive way. And that can take time and courage. I think about getting on a horse. I've never been on a horse to my recollection. I mean, maybe once as a kid they threw me on one or something, but just from depictions I've seen. This could be riding a bike. Maybe it's a better example. It takes courage to sit on that bike. Going swimming, now I've done that. I remember crying, and then they threw me in the deep end, and that was really traumatic to learn to swim. But then it was difficult, but once I got in and then I had power as a swimmer. I was not a competitive swimmer, but I mean, it's fun to be in the pool, and there's all kinds of cool stuff that I was able to step into. And it took Mars and Saturn, digging deep into the Mars and Saturn and taking those actions and letting my elders, in this case parents and family, and it wasn't like they just threw me in the deep end and turned away. I forgot the exact transaction, but probably had floaties on, or they just kind of slowly brought me in. But it was, and then you become a swimmer, and then you're actively into it. That's the kind of force of power and strength that is supported this week with Mars in Capricorn, Saturn in Aquarius, ruling Mars in Capricorn, and that whole stellium in Capricorn. And so I just think it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have this energy combined with the waxing moon energy that we get in this beautiful, beautiful waxing moon cycle that I'm going to now shift and talk about. One of my favorite parts of this week is the fact that the moon, all week, so I'll just walk you through here. The moon Monday morning is seated by the sun in Saturn's day sect home Aquarius star. That's Tuesday morning, you have the new moon. Monday morning, the moon enters Aquarius. And so I'm just going to change that to Tuesday morning. That's what's accurate here. Monday morning is when it enters Aquarius. And so it's 10:42 Monday morning. We start the week with the Capricorn moon, we get the Aquarius moon Monday morning, and then by the next morning on Tuesday, you have that seeding of the new moon, the Saturn syzygy. I like that alliteration, Saturn's syzygy, this heavy Saturn energy of this new moon. We get that strong power Saturn, but see, all week, this is what's so awesome. Every time the moon enters a sign, the ruler of the moon, the domicile ruler, has strength all week. You start with a Capricorn and Aquarius moon, Saturn strong in Aquarius, so you have the support of the ruler, the final outcome, as Dorotheus would say, an ancient astrologer. The moon is what is the first thing, how the moon is. The outcome of an action is the ruler of the moon. So this whole week has this supported outcome because the moon's rulers have dignity, have essential dignity. And let's just walk through it here. So like I said, Capricorn and Aquarius moons, Saturn is strong in Aquarius, very powerful. Then you have the Pisces moon, which starts on, it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's about half of Wednesday, all day Thursday, which is Jupiter's day. You have this powerful moon in Pisces, and then about half the day Friday, a little over half the day Friday, you get a Pisces moon. Jupiter's in Pisces, powerful. So the ruler of the moon is still powerful. And then you come to the Aries moon, starting on Friday, about 4 p.m. Central Europe. And we get an Aries moon Friday, Saturday, and then almost all day Sunday in Central Europe. Only 8 minutes before the new week starts will the moon enter Taurus. But even the Taurus moon has Venus in its Egyptian terms. I think Venus will still be in its Egyptian terms. Let me just double check that. Venus has Venus is in Jupiter's Egyptian terms, but Venus, let me just check it. I don't like when I raise something, as some of you know, and then we can find the answer with my solar fire here. Let's check that lunar ingress. Let me share my screen. I'll show you what I'm looking at. Here's the lunar ingress next Sunday. So this is February 6th. Let's see how far Venus has come. So Venus will, by this time, it's in the 12th degree and not yet in its Egyptian terms. I think Venus will enter, this is now 2 weeks from now, but let's just get clear on that. Venus enters its Egyptian terms next week. It'll be about the 10th of February next week. It won't be during this Taurus moon. But the good thing about Venus in Capricorn is it's not about solely, so let me just hear, Venus is now direct in Capricorn, but it's with triplicity rulership. Venus in an earth sign does very, very well, especially at night. You get the coolness, especially during the day. So, the night signs are kind of when we stay in, but then at the daytime, Venus can maybe help us get out a little bit more engaged in Capricorn, maybe connecting with other people in a more outward way. But so let me just walk you through this again. It's the Capricorn Aquarius moons ruled by the powerful Saturn, the Pisces moon ruled by the powerful Jupiter in Pisces, the Aries moon ruled by the exalted Mars in Capricorn, and reception with that Mars, reception with Jupiter. Saturn, you don't have reception until there's an entry into Aquarius. You have co-presence. And then finally you get the Taurus moon, which is making that trine to Venus, which is the night triplicity ruler of Capricorn. So that's the summary of the detail, but the larger point is all week the moon has support with strong rulers. And so I think this is a week where we're going to start with the Mercury stationing direct. Remember, Saturn purified in the heart of the sun, Mars, Jupiter sextile. There's a lot of just sense of go, 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 move ahead, green light. This is powerful. This is a great time to get into 2022 and actively move into it with kind of the sense of knowing you have great power as a human being. Your soul is extremely powerful and forceful. The perceptive abilities, the analytical abilities, all of those things give you great power. And so how do you want to use your power this week? I think is a big theme we'll see that comes up later. And then I have here Jupiter's day is Thursday. That might be the sweetest of all because there's a particular arrangement. It's my transit of the week with this Pisces moon on Thursday where we have this direct channel to Jupiter, and unlike channels that we'll have or that we have had for a long, long time. So this is like the climate, I've been saying 2022 is the year of Jupiter. Well, this is like the week of Jupiter, Thursday, the day of Jupiter with the powerful moon in Pisces with Jupiter. It's here, it's now, this is it. So, all right, let's go down chart by chart. Two charts that, as you know, I like to pick. This is that new moon in Aquarius, kicks off on Tuesday, 6:45 a.m. in Central Europe. And the thing to note about it is that the new moon is closely conjoined Saturn. It is 3 degrees away, and even if Saturn was farther away, you still have the ruler Saturn with the new moon. But as it gets closer, it just becomes even more Saturn than it would otherwise, being in Aquarius. And I have here Saturn's new moon, and this is the thing about it, the key thing with timing. Only one more new moon in Aquarius. When you have an Aquarius season, only one more Aquarius season might be the better way to say that. I don't think there's 2 new moons next year, but it's next year's Aquarius season. 2023 will be the last Aquarius season with Saturn in Aquarius for 28 years or however long it's going to be. And that's why I think this particular new moon so close to Saturn, it's like this second to last chance to seed the newness of Saturn in Aquarius. And it's a kind of a cool chart. I mean, so that's the point here, is that as we think about this longer cycle, as I was talking about in the introduction, of coming out of the destructive upheavals we've had and now building for the rest of this year, the rest of this decade, the rest of the Saturn cycle, these kind of new moons are like the builder new moons. And especially with Mars and Capricorn, also ruled by Saturn, it's a builder placement. So it's the only one with this Saturn cycle. What I have are initiations of the decade, of the 20-year period of the Age of Air, of the 160-year period of the Age of Air we're now in with the Jupiter-Saturn cycle, the 20-year period of Saturn, Jupiter having conjoined in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn. And then the next Saturn-Jupiter conjunction comes to Libra. So maybe it's a shift off of Saturn, that 40 years of 2040 to 2060. So there's just a lot of Saturnine opportunity for the next 20 years. And I think this new moon in particular, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the chart of the new moon next Aquarius season, but maybe it's better than this. I don't know. You have Jupiter will be in Taurus for that Jupiter will be in Aries for that new moon, sextiling. Maybe that's a little bit better, the final new moon in Aquarius in 2023 with the Jupiter sextile from Aries. But anyhow, this is it's just thematically calling to mind thoughts about what you want to initiate and seed for this. Saturn is longevity. That's the other part of it. And so the theme of longevity is brought into being by the planet Saturn having such a prominent role here. But then these other longer cycles are also heavily influenced by Saturn and the sign Aquarius. So there's some multiple overlaps of this idea of kind of thinking long-term or medium-term with this particular new moon. The next thing I want to just mention here is that Jupiter and Venus are still mutually receiving each other by Egyptian term. That's what I was just checking in my solar fire. And we have the Jupiter, so we still have this. This has been here for a long time because, Jupiter moves slow. Those Egyptian terms in Pisces, it's like the first 12 degrees of Pisces are ruled by Venus, by Egyptian terms. And then Venus has stopped here in Capricorn in Jupiter's Egyptian terms. So this has been a very nice, sweet kind of backdrop theme and exchange. Two planets in mutual reception via term and making a sextile by sign and fairly close by degree. They're actually coming into, they're close by degree. I don't think this is going to perfect this sextile. Venus starts moving fast and will front run and get out ahead of Jupiter. They'll conjoin in Pisces. That's the next time Venus and Jupiter meet. So this is almost like Venus stationed and Jupiter slowly getting to Venus, but then Venus starts moving. That sextile doesn't perfect, but this mutual term exchange is preparation for the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter in Pisces. And I believe that happens. It's in like the 28th degree or 27 degrees. That happens probably in like late April. I don't have the exact date up on that. It's late April. You want to just get it up? Might as well. I've got Solar Fire open. And I think it's worth getting up here because it tells us that this period, Jupiter's ruling the new moon by Egyptian term. But this period actually I want to check that. Jupiter is ruling Venus is ruling the new moon by Egyptian term. I knew it was Venus, but then Jupiter and Venus are in this mutual reception. I think there's something here pointing us to this moment. All of April, of course, is going to be highly dynamically activated with Pisces and with that exalted Venus in Pisces. But this particular date of the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, let's just get that up. I think it's something like 28, let me just guess, April. 28 April, I've seen this all week, I've been looking at this, but so 28 April 2022, and there it is, Venus at 24 degrees, Jupiter at 27 degrees. Let's just push it ahead and see when the exact date is. So it's something like the 1st of May Day. It's actually during the eclipse, that's right. The eclipse chart that is coming up, the solar eclipse in Taurus on the 30th, that's one of the best things about that eclipse chart is that it's ruled by Taurus being ruled by Venus, and exalted Venus in Pisces, look here, conjoined to Jupiter. And so that's why I think this power of the Jupiter-Venus moment with the term exchange is pointing us actually to this even more potent moment where they're joined, partile conjunct in Pisces, ruling an eclipse. And this will be April 30th. So maybe there's something with your Jupiter-Venus story, and there's certainly something with the Venus story unfolding in the current skies because Venus is traveling with Mars now and is now moving direct again. And so maybe our relationships and connection are now going to be activated with Mars and then pointing up to this Jupiter activation that's even more powerful. Maybe you have a relationship story that's unfolding and that will be climaxing here on this first eclipse. So maybe Scorpio rising, I'd be looking at you there. Taurus in the 7th house, 5th house, Pisces, and that's where all that action is going to happen on that eclipse. So let's keep pushing through here, and then I'd make the last point that you have Saturn and the other traditionals. So Saturn is averse. The moon, the sun, and Saturn do not make aspects to anything in Capricorn or anything in Pisces. The way I'm delineating this, now Saturn does rule Capricorn, so there's that kind of flow between the signs both being ruled by Saturn. But this aversion is its own symbolism, and I think about it as centering the goal, right, with Saturn, independent of the other activity in our lives. Sometimes when we have a goal and a long-term vision, we really have to center that at the detriment of other things. It's like you want to write that book. Well, what are you going to turn down to create writing time? I'm going to have to be doing that soon. Really kind of focus on some productive writing. And, you know, maybe there's not as much time for other work activities. And so this is the way of an aversion with Saturn. We get fixed in Aquarius, fixed on a goal, Saturn the taskmaster, and we're pushing ahead. And this is why success can happen. This is why Saturn is the kingmaker or the eminence placement often in charts. It can be because it requires commitment, discipline, and kind of a giving oneself over to Saturn and a sacrifice of other identities and other actions in service of Saturn and those larger goals. So what do I have here? What are we giving up for success? Think about this week. Anytime you have great astrology that supports activity like this week, you know, right away the question is, what are you going to do about it? I mean, we'll go to the transit of the week here soon, but I mean, how are you going to use this Jupiter Venus, this Jupiter moon, this Pisces Jupiter conjunction this week? Like, it's a big question. These kind of elections, these kinds of moments do not come around often. So if we want to use it, we kind of have to say, all right, I'm going to mark my calendar, take time, prepare for it. You see how now it kind of takes over and can push things out when we have a goal. And that's Saturn. So I'm thinking a lot about that this week with this new moon so close to Saturn. Now next, let's go to the fixed stars. There is a fixed star that will be closely conjoined the new moon, Armus. This is a star in the Capricorn, the Sea Goat constellation, right near the back here, right in the back of the Sea Goat. And I'm not going to stay on this too long, but I was interested here in Vivian Robeson's delineations here. Robeson says that this star is of the nature of Mars and Mercury. So Armus is of the nature of Mars and Mercury, and both in Capricorn, so both being ruled by Saturn, but it gives disagreeableness, contemptibleness, instability, shamelessness. Nagging is what I wanted to focus on, and troublesome or contentious nature. It fits with the theme, because if you have a commitment, if you have a goal, and you're going to have to, first of all, nag yourself to stay on task. Ideally, I think the best goals we just are aligned with, and we kind of have to stay committed, and be, you know, other people may be nagging us. We're fine with our commitments, but people are saying, I want you to do this or do that, or come say this or come say that, or why aren't you talking to me? So there may be nagging that comes in the way of our personal commitments as we make them. You know, what's that saying? If you set a boundary, you can kind of see which people are going to honor it. Those are your real friends, and those that are fighting your boundaries are maybe people that aren't aligned with your goal. This can kind of be the theme here with Armus, I think, with that kind of nagging energy that might come. And it might be annoyance. Staying with the goal may mean annoyance. I mean, there may be choices you have to make, all right? This is like the classic thing. Maybe it's a bad one, but like, you know, I'm trying to save for this purchase and I have $50, and do I just go spend it on something fun? I kind of like to spend it on something fun, but you know, so that's why I was saying it's a bad example. But let's say you have a goal, a monetary goal. It helps to save a little bit, or just then save half, and we're making compromises towards the goal, and it might be annoying to do that. So anyhow, those are the themes. The new moon, strong with Saturn. It's in this larger Aquarius cycle. It's about committing to goals so we can use Saturn in its most powerful way, and then the annoyances that may result as that commitment. That's the symbolic themes that I'm seeing here. Let's shift. Let's get to the chart of the week. Very cool new moon, actually. I'm really excited about it. I think it's time to really deepen into this upside that Aquarius can bring, especially as we're getting warmer. Hopefully, it's been cold in Europe, hasn't it? Those of you, I saw snow in New York yesterday. Maybe we're now peeking into some warmth. And so anyhow, aside from the weather, it's just we are in a period where there's more sun every day at this time of year. And so there's just a sense of growth with the waxing moon, after the new moon. It's just a lovely, lovely moment, I think. So I'm very, very excited about it. All right, let's move. This is now not what I wanted to look for. So it's the transit of the week. Sorry, I skipped a slide there. Here I am on the transit of the week. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm not even going to read it. This is awesome, okay? This is an amazing, amazing moment of astrology. Full stop. Like, I want you to think about, if you do anything this week, be prepared here. So Thursday, 2 a.m. in Central Europe is the chart I've picked, but it really is half of Wednesday, all of Thursday, and half of Friday within Central Europe, where you're going to have the most special astrology that we've had in many, many, many months. Because, and let's just dive into the chart now. One, the moon is waxing. I love to wait for waxing moon cycles to step into growth or change. Okay, so you've got that. Two, you have big ideas because Jupiter is the ruler of the moon. Jupiter is highly supported in this chart. Jupiter is now in its domicile, its water domicile, Pisces, as everybody has said. It's got sextiles from Saturn, and sextiles from Mars, and the Mars-Venus conjunction that's applying is closely sextiling the moon and Jupiter in this chart. You have Mercury, not quite direct, but stationing direct later the next day on Friday. But Mercury is basically slowing in the degree of its direct station it's visible. You know, Mercury has made an appearance and it's about to move forward. So the Mercury isn't too hindering too much here. In fact, it's in what we call phasis, which means 7 days before it's made the appearance. So this is a very, in a lot of ways, a strong Mercury. That makes the sextile. Everything I spoke earlier about the mix of this Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Capricorn, it applies here. You have during this, so its big ideas of Jupiter are highly supported, and that is the game. That's what's going down, just symbolically with the power of Jupiter. The next thing I want to look at is this side of it, which is, actually, was there one other thing? So I'm going to talk about, no, I'll talk about this second. I had the slides in right order. The next thing is that this Jupiter is in a benefic closure. And as you know, I focused on those. I'm glad to see that being on Twitter now. I'm like seeing other astrologers more than I've ever have focus on the benefic closures of the moon. I love it because I don't pick out every one usually for these talks. I like to focus on like my favorite one or the best one or the most profound one. So anyhow, this benefic enclosure hits, the moon will perfect its conjunction with Jupiter, and then immediately after that, it starts to apply to the sextile with Venus. No other planet by degree intervenes. We call that the planets cast rays, and they can break up an enclosure. Nothing is doing that. And I use the 7 traditionals for rays because those are the major planets. They rule houses, they rule signs, they cast rays. As you know, I've talked about, that's one of my, the 7 traditionals definitely cast rays. For purposes of analyzing benefic and malefic enclosures, I think we should contain ourselves to those 7 traditionals. That's my philosophy at this time. So let's come back here. We're in a lunar mansion. Lunar Mansion 27, Alfarg Althani. And this is this middle section of Pisces, the second to last lunar mansion. So lunarium.co.uk, awesome site, favorite site for lunar mansions. They summarize it as being good for business, commerce, healing, farming, and gardening. And not good for travel, building, or starting a new project. I went ahead and I wanted to read a little bit more about why. So the essence, income, connection, mischief. I just quoted Warnock here. I included this Warnock quote. This Lunarium quotes Warnock writing about this mansion, the 27th mansion. Our receipt of payment or goods means that someone else must give them to us. We are wise to stay cognizant of the fact that when this mansion appears, our gain is another's loss, and we must also consider that what appears on the surface to be good fortune may not remain so on deeper examination. Are we blinded by the passions and desire of the ego for more and more at the expense of our true self? So the reason why I wanted to bring that quote in is that yes, we might be able to get great gain here during something like this, a waxing moon with a strong Jupiter. And so I think it's great for business and commerce, just like they have in their summary. But there's this spiritual component to Pisces that is the storms of Pisces. And let me go to my next slide here. And I'm just going to read some of these points because I think they're important. What is truth? What is truth? Truth is the exposure of lies. Truth is a light, and you bring a light, you shine it on the crevices, dark crevices. Often what you see when the light is shined can be some dirty stuff, and things that are difficult to digest. And that's why I think there's a painful side of Jupiter and Pisces, a painful side to Jupiter, period. And I think this is why so many people online, if you follow the Jupiter discourse, anytime I will tweet about Jupiter being strong, it never fails. There's people like in my replies saying, oh no, Jupiter doesn't work for me, or I find Jupiter to be a problem, or there's kind of these Jupiter haters, you might say. And this is why I think this is my understanding of what might be going on there. And of course, I don't want to, assume or presume that I know someone's chart or their interpersonal relationship to a particular planet. But I think it's that often Jupiter has this painful side of exposure and then forcing truth on into a situation. And it's spiritual and mystical truth is freeing, yes, but it's also destructive. Jesus flipping over the currency, the business people in the temple, he flipped over those tables. The idea that truth comes and kind of alters the landscape or the status quo. These are the kind of destructive storms of Pisces. And I go back to Dan Rudger, who says Pisces are storms that destroy what Saturn built in Aquarius. And Saturn was in Capricorn and Aquarius. Now Pisces gets to destroy that. And I think it's like destruction. What it does is wash away the parts that aren't needed or aren't functional. And so I think that this Jupiter in Pisces, Saturn in Aquarius, so powerful. The dual track of the first part of 2022, that's a big part of it. You still have Saturn doing its structure in Aquarius, but now Jupiter gets to come and start cleansing and cleaning while Saturn's finishing that job. And so if new truths are emerging in your life, new uncomfortable revelations, just go with it. And they might need to tweak as you're building. And that's what's so cool about having this new moon is like it's a time to plan as well. And like the new moon rituals that are so popular. Jupiter and Pisces can kind of wash away and cleanse our intentions, I think. And maybe we need to modify and adapt the Saturn side of what's being initiated during this period with Jupiter. And then I have here, the mansion. Remember, I was reading Warnock, and then some of the other writers were saying about this too, but it's a mansion dealing with spiritual truth. And this is where you get the spiritual side of Pisces. You see it in the literature, actually. This is not an invention. Jupiter itself can be priests or spiritual leaders ruling Pisces. You get this kind of spiritual side of the sign. And heavy spiritual truth, I mean, listen, if someone's going to tell you like, okay, the world's corrupt and God, you are God. I mean, that can be a deep, it's like the Matrix. You take the pill. It's like, remember Morpheus, he says, do you want to know? Are you sure? There's no going back, man. You sure you want to learn this? And then he takes it, and yeah, there was no going back, right? He saw the Matrix for what it was, woke up. And I think about all of these quotes that you hear, like, I think, what is it? Krishnamurti, I think, has a quote that's like, is it being in a sick society, you might be, if you're well, but then the culture around you and the society is sick, you might be labeled as sick or insane by a sick society. So it's those issues that arise when we start dealing with this particular lunar mansion, Jupiter and Pisces, all of this kind of heaviness of how do the truths integrate with the narrative? How does Saturn and Jupiter now kind of become friends? And so I'm thinking about, if you're using elections, find elections where you can maybe do something spiritual. That would be one way to go. Of course, there's the business and success side that is also supported. This is a general election that's powerful. So I like to use the lunar mansions to really deepen our understanding of the quality of time. But in terms of general electional principles, this is also very strong. You can do anything. I mean, just use it for anything you want that's positive. Now, Mercury, Let me just qualify that actually, and let me actually qualify. I've been so excited. This is the thing with when you do elections, you really have to thoroughly go through certain checklists. Mercury being retrograde here is something that does still, even though it's made its phase and it's about to station direct, that actually does give me pause for doing some kind of big, I'm a kind of a technical person. I really do want to see the retrograde come to an end before I would want to elect around mercurial themes. Maybe this is best to just pray to Jupiter. I can just see this election being more of a spiritual or mystical or ritual type of activity that you might want to initiate this week. And certainly that Mercury may not be, it's like the best possible Mercury retrograde you could have, right almost at the end. So you know, maybe it isn't determinative to reject this, to take action, but later in the cycle, you know, so we'll get the moon next week. You've got a Gemini moon with a direct Mercury. Let's see what else. That Cancer moon is another one in this first half of the lunation, the lunar month, where we can get a Cancer moon waxing. Maybe that's the time to find an election. I haven't dug deep into those charts yet. Well, Mars will be in Capricorn opposing it. So anyhow, there's a little bit of there's a period in, I think it's April. It's March. In March, there's a return to some really, really potent elections. So maybe you wait for that March moment to really kind of go active. And April, I think it is too. Sorry, it's April. It's the waxing phase in April, where you have Venus will be in Pisces and Jupiter is. You want to look at it? I'm just going to say, I have Solar Fire up. I think that we might as well just throw it up here. This is a little bit of preview about April. It's this pre-eclipse season. It's that first half. So the first eclipse in this eclipse season will be a new moon, a solar eclipse. But it's the lunation cycle before the eclipse, the waxing phase of that. So here's April 2nd. You'll have the sun will be in Aries, but I think it's here. It's this Cancer moon that I really love for some very amazing elections. You'll get overcoming trines from Jupiter and Venus in Pisces, overcoming there. So I'm gonna just come back now. That's just something to put on your calendar. April 7th is when it starts. So let me come back. The other thing about the spiritual heavy truth is you've got Neptune, which can also, you think Jupiter brings heavy spiritual storms. Having that Neptune in Pisces is just going to magnify all of that. I actually like Neptune. People are like Neptune is a malefic. I don't side that way. I think it is a profound energy that just magnifies. It's like Pluto. Is it a malefic? I think it's a great magnifier of change and upheaval in a very profound way. We need it. We need Neptune. So. And in Uranus, I don't really assign any of the non-traditional planets malefic or benefic status. I think they're more just, they are enhancements and accentuations dealing with certain themes. And Neptune certainly enhances and accentuates on this theme of spiritual truth and the idea of like where is the society and the truths that are elucidated, how does that impact the collective understanding, all of those things. So, all right, let's just pause there. I think that's a great way to end it. Let's pick a cartomancy card, a tarot card. Let's check in with what that is going to say, what kind of additional symbol that may add. Okay, we've got the card. This one is let me just get it up here quickly. This one is okay, thanks for holding there, the Two of Swords. Very interesting, wow. This is a cool card, this tarot card, the Two of Swords, or the Two of Spades in this deck. I've named it Arrangement, and I love the color. I love this color that I made when I made this deck, this teal or this kind of purplish, light purple color. It's my favorite color. You can see with my branding and logo, it's not exactly this color, but it's a similar kind of lavender. This is more blue, but close to lavender. It's a relaxing color to me. I just like to relax into it. It feels healing and just relaxing and nourishing. But this is the decan, the first decan of Libra, where you have the moon ruling this decan. And you'll see the symbols. It's often like in Rider-Waite-Smith, it's a blindfolded person with the two swords. It's kind of like meditating. There's a meditation happening with the power of the weapons, and then kind of like kind of spiritualized warfare. All of the swords or spades have an edge, because you're dealing with the mind and the mind of the world of ideas, which can be so harsh. But I just love this because there's another deck I like, and I can't think of the name of it, but it depicts it as like a tent in the desert where you can kind of rest in like a desert area. And I just think about it as an arrangement. Libra's making arrangements and agreements. The moon here has kind of got some safety, or the initial kind of way that we can reach concordance or agreement with people. What does this fit into this week's astrology? I don't know. Maybe this is bringing us back into the Jupiter. I think actually what I would say is that the moon being with Jupiter, while Venus and Jupiter are in a sextile relationship and exchanging Egyptian terms, it's all of that energy that comes in here. It's the kind of arrangements we can make with other people that can protect us and lead us into kind of these hopeful visions of the future. So combining this card with Jupiter symbolism and Piscean symbolism and kind of the Capricorn Saturn side of the current skies, that this is I'd just say this would be auspicious. Maybe it's more meditative, like kind of maybe pause first, and maybe regular checking in with yourself to kind of ask yourself, all right, is this okay? Is this agreement or arrangement something that I want to be making? That might be what this is saying too. I do think there's a meditative feature. Anytime you have the two, it's like self-other. It's like the me, and then it's the awareness that is aware of me and aware of the thoughts. It's this kind of bifurcation of consciousness that happens with us. And so that's, I think, the two symbolism coming here. You get awareness of that in meditative states. So anyhow, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for being here. See you soon. That's the Weekly Tarot. That's the Weekly Astrology. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking this video or subscribing to the channel. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep these videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.